This was just warming up my fingers for the Romanian community from Vancouver and worldwide, just before the interview with Cecilia Burcescu.
There was a time when we could enjoy your presence every week on the stage of the Orpheum, when you were the concertmaster of the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra under the baton of Maestro Sergio Comissiona. And what wonderful times those were indeed. And the way you would relate to each other, like conductor to concertmaster, was like mystical, magical in a way. And I remember that Maestro Comissiona would just give you an entrance, but by just pointing at you, as if saying, you know what I mean. So it was, there was no need of more words. So can you explain what's the magic formula to such a collaboration?
He was a great musician, and I had a lot of admiration for him, for his music making, for his personal friendship, the friendship of his wife, Robin. And we came from similar musical background, Romania, one generation apart, but nevertheless the same continuum of Enescu, Lipati, Florica Muzicescu, Comissiona, and I was the young man on the totem pole, since I was a student during that time in Romania. So there was an understanding, but fundamentally, he was a great musician, and I hope and I think that he appreciated my musicianship, and there was a rapport that way. We did quite a number of concerti together, among them Mendelssohn, and I'm not sure if we did the Beethoven. I know I did the Tchaikovsky with the Houston Symphony, of which he was music director prior to that. But now, coming up in October, I was invited by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra of London to record the Mendelssohn Concerto and the Beethoven Concerto with them for release in the spring of 2014 on the RPO label. And this is on the heels of a recording that we did in January of this year, 2013, which is going to be coming out in the fall, I believe in October 2013. And they invited me to come back and perform as soloist with them in one of their series in London. So I'm playing the Beethoven Concerto on October 8.
Este interesant de remarcat ce raport extraordinar a existat între Maestro Comissiona ca dirijor și Robert Davidovici în chip de concertmaster. Este formidabil să auzi explicațiile unuia dintre cei doi implicați în procesul comunicării și să înțelegi cumva cât de interesant este această formulă magică care e ca un vas de comunicare între doi artiști. You've also been very lucky with wonderful opportunities in your professional life, like having been the student of David Oistrakh, or more exactly, David Feodorovich Oistrakh. So, what
and
kind?
his son is Igor Davidovici.
Igor Davidovici.
Igor
Really?
Because the patronymic, the name David becomes the patronymic.
Oh, right. Yes.
So it's
yes.
Igor Davidovici Oistrakh.
That's amazing. So, of course, he was one of the greatest of the 20th century,
Absolutely.
right? How was he as an individual? He looked very kind-natured, was he? Or not quite?
He was.
He was.
He respected the quality of his students, and it was colleague to colleague. And I also was lucky enough to study with a friend of his, Ivan Galamian, at Juilliard. So it was the same kind of respectful teaching. You felt that there was a appreciation on the part of both these great pedagogues. And then if you were smart enough, you picked up every little tidbit to make you progress. Yeah.
Well, as a teacher, I can definitely relate to that kind of experience.
And as to luck, and yes, I think somebody said one has to be ready to take advantage of luck. You know, opportunities come along, and you either are ready or not ready. So
just open the door, right?
well, yes, sometimes you need to blow a little wind in, or it's more than just open the door. But essentially, if you're ready, then those that are ready take advantage of luck.
Absolutely. Actually, you started being quite fortunate at a very early age. I was quite in awe finding out that you got an amazing award in Australia in your 20s, I guess you were. Very young, not only at heart, but very young indeed. And that was in the 60s, 67 something?
That is correct. Wow.
Yeah,
Very
and
good.
well, whatever surprises me, I remember.
Yeah, it was the Australian, well, actually there were two things. I won the Australian Broadcasting Commission's concerto competition, and that is the concerto competition which was memorialized or made famous by the movie that David Halfcott was described in.
It was part of one of the Vancouver film festivals, and I saw it.
Yeah.
Yes.
A troubled person
Yes.
who was vying to win this competition, which he didn't win, and Roger Woodward instead won, and Roger was a few years older at the high school, Conservatorium of Music High School in Sydney. So that was the first big thing that I won. The second big thing that I won was a government overseas scholarship, which allowed me to go to study in Moscow and Juilliard, and interestingly enough, prior to my Moscow trip, I received a letter from a Romanian pianist studying in Moscow. Said, "Come, I'll take care of you."
Can I guess?
Yes, you will guess right.
Radu Lupu?
Radu Lupu. Yeah. So we've been friends since then. Yeah.
Well, este extraordinar de interesant să realizezi că o carieră fulminantă ca a lui Robert poate să înceapă nu pe continentul pe care s-a născut, ci exact la celălalt capăt al lumii, in a way. Și nu numai atât, un astfel de pas care îți lansează cariera cu o bursă ce l-a condus pe Robert la Juilliard, unde a putut să-și perfecționeze maestria. Este formidabil cum circumstanțele împing o carieră la care, bineînțeles, transpirația este mai mult decât inspirația. Un alt succes fulminant care m-a uimit a fost the Carnegie Hall competition that you won in, let me see, 1982, 83?
Very good, very good. Sorry to add this, but in 1972 I won the Naumburg competition in New York. So that was, gave me an aspect to my playing that was the entire literature, violin literature, to perform. By contrast, the 1983 Carnegie Hall - Rockefeller Foundation International American Music Competition for Violinists focused on modern music, American music. 20% could be non-American music, but 80% had to be American.
It was with the American Symphony Orchestra at that time?
No, that came later. That was part of the prize, but the competition didn't involve orchestral performances. But the competition was held on the stage of Carnegie Hall. And winning that was gave me the ability to really immerse myself in 20th century music. I played John Cage, Aaron Copland, Gunther Schuller, Walter Piston, Hugh Aitken, who happened to be my literature and materials professor at Juilliard. And to again bring it back to the January recording, that gave me the ability to immerse myself in the music of Lutoslavsky, which is on the CD, his partita for violin orchestra, composed in 1988. In fact, therefore, after the competition, which I won in 83. In 1989, I performed with Lutoslavsky, his other piece, Chain 2, and it gave me the ability to pick up the Szymanowski Second Concerto, which was composed in 1934, and to pick up the Paul Kletzke Violin Concerto
in 1928.
Very good.
Learned my lesson.
Your numerology is excellent. So everything helps everything.
Now, what I cannot understand is how come it is so late that this world premiere recording that you've done on this CD came only now? I mean, 1928, 2013, huge distance in time, right? But I also remember that you premiered it in America, right? And that was about 5 or 6 years ago.
I premiered the Paul Kletzke Violin Concerto in the United States in 2007 at Lincoln Center with the American Symphony Orchestra and Leon Botstein conducting. So very quickly, since you asked how come such a hiatus between 1928 and 2007, quickly, Paul Kletzke was born in Poland in 1900. He was recognized as a child prodigy, played the violin. In the First World War, he saw action, he was drafted. He played in the Watch Philharmonic before, he was composing. Furtwängler heard him, brought him to Germany. He's still the youngest conductor to have conducted the Berlin Philharmonic because of Furtwängler's tutelage. He even lived at his house. Shimrock and Breitkopf und Hartl published Kletzky's works from Opus 1. So they recognized the talent. He was perhaps the brightest talent, along with Korngold probably, who was a child prodigy. So he was Jewish. In 1925, Richard Tauber, the tenor, sang the title role of Paganini in Franz Lehar's work. We think that that inspired Kletzky to dedicate the concerto to Tauber, which he did. So the premiere was in 1928. It was played 15 times by the reigning violinist Georg Kulenkampff in Germany and Switzerland and probably Austria. Kulenkampff became a Nazi. Kletzky had to flee Germany, and he was with 2 cratefuls of scores and parts. That was his entire, the rest, the Nazis were burning. So he assumed all he had were 2 cratefuls of his music. His wife was Swiss. He got a job at the Milan La Scala Opera for a year in, I think, 1940 or 1941. He conducted the Kharkov Philharmonic in the Ukraine, in the Soviet Union, but he was dismissed, again as being Jewish. He went back to Milan. In Milan, he lived in a hotel. He put in his 2 cratefuls of music in the storage room, in the basement of the hotel. When the Americans were bombing Milan, the hotel got a direct hit. At this point, Kletzky was convinced that all his music is destroyed. After the war, he didn't mention to anybody that he was a composer, and he made a great career as a conductor. In fact, he was going to become conductor for life of the Israel Philharmonic, until they discovered that his wife was Swiss and not Jewish. And that's when they gave it to Zubin Mehta. In the 60s, the Milan government was renovating the neighborhood where this hotel had been. So they were excavating. They found the 2 trunkfuls, not destroyed. Over a period of months, they repatriated the 2 trunks to Kletzky's domicile in Bern, Switzerland. Kletzky refused to open the trunks, thinking that it was all dust. He passed away in 1973 or 1974 without opening the trunks. His widow refused to open the trunks until friends prevailed on her in the 80s to please open the trunks. She opened the trunks. And everything was perfect. The outer layer was yellowed from age. The violin concerto was there with his score, with his notations of the score. A friend of mine, musicologist at the University of North Texas, where I used to teach, made me aware of it, asked me to play first his piano trio, then his violin piano sonata, then his concerto. So we premiered the post-world premiere in Israel for the Israeli radio for violin and piano in 2004 or 5. And then it was premiered in 2007 in the United States. It's a fascinating story. Freud would have an incredible time in trying to analyze the psyche of Kletzky, why he would not open the trunk.
Este extraordinar de constatat cum viața unui artist poate deveni o odisee cauzată de evenimente istorice care sunt total dincolo de controlul individului, așa cum a fost situația în cazul compozitorului și dirijorului Kletzky, al cărui concert este înregistrat pe acest CD pe care Robert Davidovici l-a înregistrat cu orchestra Royal Philharmonic și care va fi la îndemâna publicului în toamna acestui an. I always remember that after the American premiere, there was a review in which your performance was labeled as excellent, and it was by neither more nor less than the New York Times. So that already must have given you the green light toward pursuing the recording of this concert.
Yes, whoever has heard or seen the score, they think that it's an important concerto. There are not too many good or great German concerti from this period. There is the Alban Berg, of course, Brahms before Alban Berg. There is Richard Strauss, there's Hindemith, there's Schoenberg, but the Schoenberg, the Hindemith haven't quite made it. And we hope, I mean, I'm having very positive comments, and whoever hears this, that it's a very interesting concerto. And we hope, well, that it'll be picked up by various. I know that people are making noises about it and being entered for various competitions, Grammys and so on, so for Juno. And it so happens the conductor is Grzegorz Nowak, who was the conductor of the Edmonton Philharmonic, and he is one of the conductors of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra of London. He actually suggested, let's combine the Klecki, given that he's born in Poland, with Szymanowski and Lutosławski. So it's Polish-German with two real Poles.
Amazing. Ceea ce este întotdeauna un soi de sentimentalism este că de fiecare dată când un compatriot are succese, precum Robert Davidovici, românilor din Vancouver, ca să localizez, le crește inima. Și probabil că nu numai în Vancouver. De exemplu, primăvara asta eram în București și cum de obicei fac un turneu al sălilor de concert, teatrelor și librăriilor din București, m-am aflat la Cărturești, în București, care este o librărie de mare anvergură în momentul de față. Și pentru că, umanistă fiind, mă pricep la săpături literare și eventual și muzicale, am dat de un sipet cu comori muzicale, o colecție de vintage records, and I was so greedy as to buy them all, not only for myself but for my musician friends. Am cumva delapidat Cărturești și am intrat în posesia tuturor acestor înregistrări din anii 1920, 1930, 1940, reconstituite în Germania, la Hamburg. Și pentru că Robert Davidovici este unul din prietenii mei muzicieni, m-am gândit să-i fac o surpriză și i-am adus. Can you see what it is?
This is beautiful. First of all, Heifetz playing Mendelssohn Concerto, Vieuxtemps number 5, Saint-Saëns, Introduction of the Capriccioso Havanese, and Mozart number 5, recorded in 1934, and Beethoven Concerto with Toscanini, fantastic. fantastic. And Casals.
I knew you would enjoy that. I had no doubt about it. Yeah, so, în concluzie, Bucureștiul este încă plin de surprize și comori, iar, în general vorbind, cultura este la înălțime, indiferent de condițiile mai mult sau mai puțin precare, de care știm cu toții, cultura este absolut de clasă. Îmi amintesc acum că, la un moment dat, Boston Globe was reviewing you. It sounds like that. Robert Davidovici is a terrific violinist. His technique is of the wow variety. Now, it's...
I'm of course blushing.
No, but it seems to me that the reviewer was short of words and, you know, kind of speechless. So all I can say is that I really hope that very soon you will wow us in Vancouver with, who knows, a recital. You can bring your friend Radu Lupu and maybe our dear Lila Getz, the director of the Vancouver Recital Society, who is the most resourceful person in the cultural life of Vancouver, would take that into consideration. And that would be indeed a delight. Sperăm să-l avem pe Robert Davidovici în mijlocul nostru, poate chiar în tandem cu prietenul său Radu Lupu, și nutrim nădejdea că poate din cine știe ce norocoasă întâmplare, Lila Getz, directoarea de la Vancouver Recital Society, aude zvonuri despre această sugestie și trece la fapte. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure.